Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? As Alicia said, this is our favorite day of the year, welcoming back all the KP Fellows over the last decade, and some more recent, some more from a decade ago. Please meet the humblest man in Silicon Valley, which is why, did someone catch the song prior to this? It was Humble, yeah, by Kendrick Lamar. And here you have Arvind Jain. It's my absolute pleasure, Arvind, to have you here on stage with me. But he is truly a humble man, which is why I think we have a very apt song for you. Well, maybe just a quick background on Arvind. He's, as you all know, the founder and CEO of Glean. Let me just take you back, sort of his career. He went to IIT Delhi, studied engineering, computer engineering?
Computer science, yes.
Computer science, yeah. And then came to the US to do his master's at the University of Washington. So it seems like you went right to the hometown company, Microsoft. Spent a couple years there.
Yes.
Then a couple years at Akamai. Then these are all like legendary companies of the internet, of the early internet. And then Riverbed.
Yes.
And then you went to the most legendary of them all, outside of Glean, that is, which is Google. You spent almost 11 years of your career at Google, actually establishing the India office for Google. And then you decided to start your first company in Rubrik. Folks, you may know it. It's, I think, about to go public anytime. And then about almost 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago,
yes,
started Glean. And how many folks know about Glean? It's, well, a fair number, actually. That's, how many folks have used Glean? A decent number, too. This is pretty awesome. Yeah, so Glean helps employees find all this amazing knowledge inside of your companies. And, you know, we were the OG Gen AI company before there was a term called Gen AI, and we'll talk all about that as well in our conversation today. But maybe we can start with, a lot of the folks in this room here are, so roughly, if we just do the math, 10 years of KP Fellows, and if you're becoming a KP Fellow at the age of 21, so the median would be like 5 years after college. So let's just say the average age here is 27 years old, or 20, something like that. And let's take us back to when you were 27 years old. And I think at the time, there was a similar tidal wave happening with the internet. And maybe just take us back to the year 97, 98, and what you were doing, and why you were doing what you were doing.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to chat in front of all of you guys here. It's really exciting, like such a great, you know, we actually have quite a few KP Fellows in Glean as well, so I know how awesome it is. Thank you so much. So anyway, yeah, so coming back to 1997, 98, 99, so that was actually when I was just starting my career. The first thing I did was actually after graduating, I joined Microsoft. I was there for 2 years. It was a large company, good education for me, but wasn't fun enough. And I wanted to, you know, like in the middle of that .com boom, and the internet was just sort of becoming big. Amazon was actually just a bookstore at that time, online bookstore. But there's a lot of promise. There's a lot of promise, and everybody sort of, just like, you know, how you feel about AI today, that's how all of us were feeling about the internet, that, you know, this is going to be the next big thing. And I wanted to be at a company which was foundational, like in terms of like internet technology. So I joined Akamai in late '99, and Akamai was the company that, like, you know, our mission there was to make internet work. You know, in those days, the internet was actually very, very slow. Most of us had, like, you know, these, you know, dial-up modems, like, you know, like to connect to the internet through the phone lines, and there's no way you could actually you know, do things that you can do today, like, for example, videos on the web, like, no, not possible at all. You know, pages would take, like, you know, 15 seconds, 20 seconds to load, and all they had were, like, a few lines of, you know, textual content on them. And so I joined Akamai. Their mission was to make internet fast and instantaneous for everyone. So that's sort of like what I did, you know, and you know, that was my journey into the .com boom, and then, you know, later on, you know, the bust as well.
It sort of reminds me of this app that I've been using, which where you prompt a photo that you want to see of yourself. And it takes like a good 20 seconds to get a result, which seems so antiquated for anything, right? Like, it just shouldn't take 20 seconds to, And it's not too dissimilar from what you would encounter in the Internet 1.0 era, which is you couldn't even watch a video, and it took companies like Akamai to do all kinds of cool technology and caching. And so we're seeing a similar sort of paradigm that we're going through right now with AI. And just imagine you're at the heart of heart, you're always be a technologist. And so how do you think about technology waves? And maybe just taking, again, going back to the 1.0 days of 1999 to now, and how does your mind sort of think about the waves in technology? Because I think if I look at the kinds of companies you've been involved with, they've really did ride the different technology waves that have been in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I always have felt about technology is when something new comes, there is a lot of excitement and also hype, in that. That's what we're going through Gen AI today, where we saw ChatGPT and suddenly we thought that it could do all these amazing things, and then after that, a little while back, some reality sets in. But what I have found is all these big technological moments, although there is this hype, we also still underestimate in the what's going to happen in the long run. When the internet was starting, nobody imagined all the things that we could be doing on the web. Even though there was a lot of promise, but people's imagination only went to some degree. I remember this. So one of the things that I worked on at Akamai was basically trying to introduce video on the web. And I think our biggest success was basically streaming March Madness online. It was a big thing, but actually if you look at the quality, you still had big TV screens in those days, and it was a great experience watching the basketball match on the TV. But on the internet, it would be 1 inch by 1 inch, sort of the size of the video. And we were happy with it. We were actually happy that yes, now you can actually stream. You can stream on demand, when you want. But we didn't anticipate what's going how video will completely transform, and the only way to consume media and video would be actually on the internet 20 years later. I think we're going through the same moment with Gen AI, where right now the people have seen ChatGPT, and we feel yes, AI can actually do some great things. We can take all this knowledge that lives in the world or in our companies and make some good use of that, make the knowledge accessible to people. And so there are big use cases that people have in mind, but I think we're all underestimating what AI is going to do for us. I feel in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the way we all work is just fundamentally going to change. A lot of things that we do today is something that we won't be okay doing 20 years from now. One simple example is, in 1995, if I were to ask you, Mamoon, that what was the GDP of United Kingdom 20 years back? You would be okay sort of going to the library, spending one day trying to sort of go through newspaper archives and sort of get that data and come back to me. You're okay spending a day answering a question like that. Now today you absolutely won't be okay doing that, because you know that you can punch that question in Google and get the answer back instantaneously.
I have a true story for you for that, because as a kid I grew up reading encyclopedias, actually just memorizing facts inside of encyclopedias.
Right.
And this is we're talking 1985-ish, 86. And I just wished for a place where I could just enter in my question, because I had a lot of questions as a kid, and get the answer right away. And to know that 10 years later you could actually do that with technology was sort of a seminal mental moment for me when I first I was still in college at the time. But that is the beauty of technology, that 10 years forward, something what I thought was impossible had happened.
And I think we are in that moment with Gen AI. A lot of things that we think our machines are not capable of doing, they're very, very quickly becoming capable of doing those things. So 2 years from now, forget 10 years, 2 years from now, if I were to ask in a company, you have this question that, hey, we designed this system, why did we choose this architecture, or why did we choose Java or Python? You want to sort of answer that question. Today, you would be actually okay doing that research, talking to subject matter experts, figure out what happened historically, and if you'll be happy if you can get to an answer in a few hours or a day. But your expectation 2 years from now will be that, hey, that's a factual question. The knowledge is within the company, and I should be able to just ask that question to my assistant, and I should get an instant answer back for it. So it's sort of like, there are a lot of things like that are going to happen. And so my feeling always has been that with any new technology that is seminal, that is amazing, you sort of overestimate what the technology is going to do in the short run, but you underestimate what the technology is going to do in the long run.
Yeah,
that's sort of where we are with AI.
I totally agree with you. And so maybe just, I'm curious now, you decided to go to Google in 2003, and Google famously, is like the, 15th, 20th search engine. Kleiner Perkins got to be the Series A investor there in 1998. And so I think you didn't just go to Google at the height of the dot-com boom. You waited and then joined probably the most legendary company that's come out of Internet 1.0. I would say the other company is probably Amazon.
Right.
Why wait until 2003 to go to the hottest 1.0 company?
Well, that's actually interesting. Like, Google was actually anything, but hot. Or rather, it was actually not the hottest company at all when it actually originally started, because there were plenty of search engines, in that day, those like Lycos, Excite, Alta Vista. There were a range of them, and none of them were actually like the way they marketed, the way people thought about search engines. That was not the hot thing. And the hot thing, was, for example, I joined Akamai because it was actually hot. It was actually being rewarded in the public markets with massive valuations. Google was actually private, and nobody took it seriously for some time. I think the company grew after a few years of existence. So in 2002, all the hot companies of the internet actually sort of most of them actually went under. There was a big bust, and a lot of these technologies which actually made sense, but they were just a little bit too ahead, of their time. And Google was actually sort of one of the only companies left standing. They're doing well. And to me, whenever I actually picked what company I should do a job at, I was sort of lazy in terms of evaluation. I never had fancy mechanisms to sort of look at the TAM or the market analysis to figure out that, oh, this company has big opportunity and therefore I should join it. I actually always went with very, very simple, simple sort of observations. And my observation with Google was that the internet is growing and there's a lot of information out there. And today, already, my only way to sort of get to that information is through Google. This is going to be the gateway of all the information on the web. It seems like an important problem. All of us are going to use it. So it's sort of I've always made my decisions, that way, in very, very simplistic terms. If something adds value to a lot of people, that means, if you execute well, it's going to be a big thing.
Yeah, and then maybe just on the Google piece, a couple things. There's the lessons you learned working at Google and doing all kinds of amazing, building amazing search products. But you also had a detour. I don't know if it's a detour or not for you, but you established Google in India, which is now a sizable portion of the company. Yeah. What led to that?
Yeah, so in 2005, Google was growing very rapidly, and we felt that we had, hired all the engineers in Silicon Valley that, we wanted to hire. And now to actually keep building the talent, the company felt that it had to actually go outside of Silicon Valley and go all around the world, because the best engineers, if you think about all the best engineers that are out there, they're all over the world. So that was so Larry had this mission of establishing presence, wherever big talent is, and India was always seen as one of the key locations for where there's amazing tech talent. So they were looking for basically just expanding. And it was actually an interesting story. So when I actually went to establish Google India, I'd actually never managed any person in my career, not even I never had even an intern. So I had no experience managing. I actually only knew how to code. And so when I asked to actually go and establish Google India, I actually told our executives that you probably are mistaken. You're talking to the wrong person. I've actually never managed anyone, and I have no idea how to do this. But they sort of said that no, that's we want to grow. And nobody in the company knows how to manage, but you're going to sort of learn on the job. And that's sort of how it came about. They asked me to go and build organization, and I went there and I learned as I tried to execute.
Yeah. So you spend more than 11 years at Google.
Yeah.
And then you decide to start a company. Was starting a company on the agenda as a 27-year-old, 22-year-old engineer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was 22 years old or 27, I actually always had this dream or fascination with starting a company. I wanted to. In fact, but I never did. I realized that oftentimes I would come up with ideas, but then kill them myself. In the sense that it's hard to be an entrepreneur. And when you sort of are not ready mentally, you'll find some reason to sort of find holes, gaps in your own ideas and sort of decide not to do it. Then I joined Google, and Google was a great place for me. I got to build amazing products that I would see everybody around me, my friends, my family using those products. So sort of that thought of starting a company disappeared from my mind. And when we started Rubrik, again, it was actually not really on my mind that, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur and I have to do it. I think it was just I feel I think successful companies get built when you run into a problem and your desire to actually go and solve that problem. And I think that's when you actually have 100% conviction in it, because you've actually seen it, you've seen the problem, you've experienced it, and you're going to persist through that sort of the up and down journey of starting a company. So anyways, that was my journey. I was not intending to. When I wanted to start a company, I didn't start one. Then I didn't want to start one. I just sort of ran into it.
You had a few co-founders at Rubrik, right?
Yeah.
And then Glean, you decided to start that company about 5 years after you started Rubrik.
Yes.
And so here we are. It's all by yourself, solo founder.
Yeah.
And you're starting another company while you've got another company that's ongoing. I think you've left it in good hands and you're ready to move on.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it that you had this just severe itch to go solve this problem, this particular problem around search in the enterprise?
Yeah. So in fact, the idea for Glean came when I was at Rubrik. At Rubrik, we had good fortune of building a product that I think everybody in the world wanted to buy. So we were able to scale the company very rapidly, quickly. And within 4 years, we were more than 1,000 people in the company. But as we sort of had experience at hyper growth, it also came with this significant reduction in per person productivity. People are not able to do as much work as they used to be able to before. And there's a lot of concerns around that. We felt that we tripled our R&D team, but it was not resulting in the same sort of increase in velocity in our product development. And as we sort of tried to dig into that, and we would do surveys, we would ask people hey, what's wrong? What are the things we can do better as a company? And the number one complaint that we would always get was, hey, I cannot find anything in this company. I don't know where to go and look for things. I don't know who to go and ask for help. So we're not enabling our people. You have fast growth, but we didn't invest enough in organizing our company's knowledge and also sort of creating the right structures where people could get help when they needed help. So this was the problem. So we ran into this, and for me, I'm a search engineer by training. So the first thought that comes to me is, of course, we can't find anything in this company because we're using 300 different SaaS applications and our knowledge is all over the place. And people use the tools that they're comfortable using. Somebody's going to use Dropbox, somebody's going to use Box, somebody is going to use Google Drive or Confluence. And this was what was happening across industry. All companies were completely changing and redefining how technology worked for them. They were adopting SaaS. And so there was this big problem in front of us, and me being a search engineer, the first thought that comes to my mind is, let's actually build a search layer, on top of all of this enterprise content across 100 different systems we have. And as part of that, so the first thought was to just buy a product for that, and we realized that there's nothing out there. And that sort of got me excited. And this is what I was sharing before, that again, I had no intention to actually start another company, but a problem came to me, and I felt it was so important. Every person who works in any company in the world, we could sort of help them so much if we built this product. So that's sort of how Glean started.
It certainly hit me between the eyes when I first met you, aside. But in 2005 or 6, I was using a product called X1. I don't know if you know X1, but it would search across your desktop. It was a you downloaded a client, it indexed your whole hard drive, and then you could search all your emails, but only locally on your computer.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful. It was amazing. You could search any email, like a deck, file, spreadsheet, all that good stuff. And nothing came from then on until, like, literally, Glean has been built in terms of searching across not just your desktop, because we moved to a cloud world, but searching across the cloud. And so it sort of hit me between the eyes, and I think we very quickly decided that we were going to work together, and you decided you're just going to come camp out at our office for the next 2 years.
That's right.
And hire 20 people, right? So maybe tell us about the early days of Glean and 2750 Sand Hill Road.
That's right, yeah. Well, I mean, first, thanks, Mamoon, first of all, for letting us, be our guest for a long time. We actually, I think, definitely overused, the hospitality, we got from Kleiner Perkins. But that was amazing. Like, the initial days of building a startup, I think it's just like, it's fascinating. We built a great team.
Tell us the first few hires you made, because it was like pre-rapid fire that you had. You went from 1 to 5 of really amazing, incredible people.
Yeah. So I mean, when we were starting Glean, I had been working in the industry for quite some time. A lot of people who I really absolutely admired, those amazing engineers, and I'd already tried to hire many of them. They were from Google, and I tried to hire them when I was actually starting Rubrik, and I'd failed because they were not interested in building a data protection product. It was not exciting enough for them. So I reached out to them again when we were starting Glean, and actually all of them said yes, yes to me. And I was surprised, but I think it sort of made sense because now at Glean we were actually solving a problem that actually matters to us, all of us. So it's sort of easy to relate to the problem that we solve, and I think that's sort of what I felt really gave us this ability to hire the best people. Because I'd never had to actually explain or convince, or explain to anyone or convince them that this is an important problem to solve. I think if you have that kind of a luxury, you'll have great time sort of hiring people. So that was initially how it went. I got back with colleagues that I'd worked with at Google and sort of convinced them to join us.
Yeah, this is not an easy problem to solve. And the beauty of the white page with the Google search engine is that it's just obfuscates a lot of the complexity behind it, which is the same thing that you have to do. So it really is very complex technology. There are very few people in the world who know how to do it, and you've done it. I can say that now, 4.5 years later. But what were along that first 24-month journey, the hardest technical problems you had to solve and weren't able to solve fast enough? Yeah.
So search is actually, there's a very high bar when you build a search product. You're actually always competing with Google, even though you're not really, they got nothing to do with enterprise, but still the bar for people, when they come and ask questions, because all you have to do in Google is you can put in 2 words, you can misspell them, and you don't have to share anything about what you're looking for, what was the context. Somehow, there's this magic that happens. Google understands, what you're looking for and shares the right piece of information with you. So it's sort of, that's the bar that we have to build to within the enterprise. Now, Google has the luxury of understanding you because they have billions of people, coming in, every day, and sort of, it's able to learn a lot from that human behavior. And we have to sort of figure out, how we are actually going to learn. Because there was not that many, in an enterprise, there are a few hundred people or 1,000 people, and you just don't have as much learnings that can happen just from people coming to a search engine and running search queries. So that's sort of one of the key challenges that we had to solve was understand how we're going to actually build signals that's going to actually help us understand this enterprise better, the knowledge better, the relationships between people and knowledge. So there's a lot of work that happened in that area. Another one was just how are you actually going to bring all of this enterprise content together in one place? All of these systems had APIs with quirks, and sometimes you couldn't get the information that you need. So it's sort of these are complex engineering problems that take time to solve. But I would say that the biggest issue for us was convincing people that go and use our product. Because imagine you're the CIO of a large enterprise, and I come in like as a CEO of a unnamed startup that nobody in the world knows about. And my request to you is that please give us all of your data, all of your information. We're going to take it and we're going to make it searchable for you. And we have the right, you have to sort of claim that you have the right security controls when you have no security engineer in the company, right? So you have to sort of, and that's the challenge. These are the kind of challenges that you run into when you actually start a company. And you have to sort of solve them. You have to solve them all iteratively. And we figured out very quickly that nobody's going to do that. Nobody was going to actually share their data with us. And so in this modern world where everybody was building SaaS products, we had to actually make a call that we're actually going to build an on-premises kind of a product. So it runs in the cloud still, but it had to actually run in customer's environment, and we had to actually tell them that your data stays within your cloud VPC, and we will not have any access to it.
And to be clear, there was no way that you could have this be a PLG, sort of bottoms up.
That's right. That was another one, yeah. Because PLG was a fashion, and we couldn't execute on that because, to deliver value to a single person in the company, you have to connect to all of the company content. So these were some of the interesting challenges, and which were actually is interesting because the problem is not new. People have tried to solve this for a long time, but these are sort of real big headwinds, which you run into when you give up. So a lot of people gave up trying to solve this problem. And I think that's the lesson for all of us is that if you're going to try to solve a big problem which is not solved yet, is because it's actually hard. If it was easy to solve, it would have been solved by now. But you can solve it. All you need to do is persist.
Yeah. So Glean has seen a lot of success prior to Gen AI coming of age, LLMs coming of age. Maybe can you talk about the tailwind that you've gotten from LLMs and Gen AI in the last year, and how that's also changed the product roadmap? Yeah.
So when we build this product, when we build, you can think of Glean as being Google for your enterprise. When we built this product, this was not a product that businesses were used to buying. There's no budget for this. There is no project that companies have to make it easy for their employees to find information. So the first 4 years of our journey was about that, about creating the market, about convincing people that this was an important problem to solve, and basically look for the leaders who are willing to make bets on new concepts. And so that was the market. So we were sort of creating it a year at a time, and then came ChatGPT, and I think that captured I think it basically captured people's imagination in a much more massive way than what we could ever do. Where now every enterprise leader was thinking that, hey, if I actually could bring a tool like that to my employees, and the tool can actually answer people's questions using all of my company knowledge, is going to fundamentally change how productive everybody in the company can be. So it sort of created that moment for us where we went from having to go and create the market to where the market got instantly created for us. Now every company in the world wants this AI product, this assistant ChatGPT product.
What are some examples of what the product can do today?
Yeah. So first, of course, it works like ChatGPT. It asks any question that you have. Is since it's connected with all of your company information, so it's going to actually answer those for you. You can ask questions like, hey, what's my PTO policy? As an engineer, you can actually say that, hey, why did we make this technical decision? Or can you help me write code, to sort of do this new project that I've been assigned to? How do I troubleshoot, this problem that I'm running into? I just compiled my code and, I'm getting this error code. What do I do next? So all these are sort of your day-to-day things. Engineers spend a lot of time solving those problems. You can actually, just ask the Glean assistant, and it's going to actually give you the right answers. So and then if you think about other people, if you're in marketing, it's going to actually help you write amazing content, which is the LLM is doing the magic there, but it's going to use the context of your information within your company to write that content. So not just something that is I think that's sort of where the power of Glean comes in. Is that it uses the company context to sort of help you generate new content.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a true assistant in that sense. Everybody in the company benefits from it.
So, sounds pretty incredible. So, what's your ambition with Glean?
Yeah. So sometimes, I tell people like jokingly that our goal at Glean is to double the world's population. And what I really mean by that is like every person who works should have a really smart human-like assistant that's going to actually help them do their job in the future. Today, that's a luxury that like maybe some executives in the company have. They get an assistant, but in the future, all of us will have like a smarter assistant than what like the executives have today. So that's our mission. Like how do we actually make Glean Assistant be that product, be that assistant for all of you?
That's great. I love it. Love it. What keeps you up at night then?
Well, see, a lot of things. I think like the way today how I feel is that like we've been really fortunate. Like we're at the right place at the right time with the right team, with the right investors, with the right product, and the user love. Everything is like we couldn't have asked for better timing. We got to build the product for 4 years, when nobody else thought it was an important thing to do. And now we have like this great product, we have a big lead, and everybody wants this product, and it got built. So you get lucky, like you have to get lucky to build great companies. But now that you have that luck, like now like the pressure is like greater than ever before. Like for example, on me, I feel like I have no excuse. Everything is going well, and if we can't leverage this opportunity, that's a big failure. So like that's sort of the worry I have. Like how do you execute well on all fronts today?
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. But what's some advice you would have given yourself 20 years ago, or 25 years ago? And second part of the question is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, so I think the advice that I actually have for everybody here is the first, let's say if you want to be an entrepreneur, then the only thing that I want to remind everybody is that you're going to be your worst enemy, in that journey, of becoming an entrepreneur. You'll have, great ideas, and you're going to give up on them. Because, I think there's something, there's some doubt in your mind. And you need to remember that, everything, building a company, it's a journey, and, what you need is persistence. If you actually came up with an idea, then there are legs to it. There was some reason why you came up with it, and, just hold on to it and keep working through it. So that's sort of, that's the advice I would give, because that's sort of where I found myself, giving up on my ideas one after other, just because, I was not willing. And I think, sometimes, it's sort of also hard to, chase the dream of becoming an entrepreneur. I think problems will come to you. When problems come to you is when you will actually have that deep conviction in it, as opposed to when you're trying to hunt for them. So how do you sort of get exposed to that? Be in a job that allows you to have that broad experience, sort of see, engage with engage of your of your current product, the company that you work at, learn what problems people run into, and just be keep your eyes and ears open, and sooner or later some great idea is going to come to you that you will have deep conviction in.
Great, thank you. I think we have some time for some questions. Do we have a mic over here, or I'm happy to just take questions and take your question.
I'll try to be loud. First question was, on Rubrik, you mentioned it was easy to sell to thousands and thousands of companies because it was a very easy need. Is that an important signal for PMF or something that the market needs? And on Glean, you said you had to actually create the market. So is that an anti-signal? And how did you interpret that, the difficulty of selling compared to Rubrik? The second thing is, how are you thinking of competing with ChatGPT Enterprise that's in the future? It seems like they're in their own innovator's dilemma journey where they're shitty right now. They'll get better and better over time. And they're working on the most important thing, which is smarter models. So,
Well, I mean, so...
And did folks hear the question? Yeah, okay, cool. Looks like it,
So on the first question, my opinion is that like you're gonna have like all kinds of situations like in terms of what the market like is behaving like, and sometimes you are actually going and your product category is well established, there are budgets for it, and your goal is to build a better product and then convince people that it's a better product, and that's how you sell, and that works. Sometimes it's it's a new way of doing things, and you got to have that belief, and that's what we had with Glean. We felt that yes, this problem is still important because everybody who I go and talk to, like not people who I'm trying to go and sell to, but everybody who I know, like who works, I know they all have this problem. So that's sort of where conviction comes from, and then you have to go and create markets. So there are like companies of both types. Like a lot of these companies, like if you think about Google, you think about Facebook, they're all market creators. There's no demand for what they built, but you still had to, but there were still valid things to work on. And then on the second question, like on how do we compete with ChatGPT, Enterprise, OpenAI, and like not just them, like there's going to be other companies like Microsoft, Google, like everybody understands that building that assistant in the enterprise is a big productivity unlock. So there's going to be a lot of companies wanting to do it. My opinion on that is that, like as a startup, your fate is not determined by what other people are doing. There's always ample opportunity for you as a startup to go and win business. And what matters, like way more than competition, is your own execution. So we are always focused on, can we just go and build the best product? We don't spend that much time trying to think about what other companies are doing.
Just go right there. Actually, let's pink jacket. Yeah, and I think Kushi's coming.
Awesome. Thanks so much for all your insight. It's really interesting. I'm wondering how you think about personalization of the product. And you mentioned that one of your goals and mission statements is to double the world's population, which I love as a statement. But really, if you're doing that for every enterprise, that's only going to be, I don't know, in the tens of thousands globally. So how do you think about actually doubling the world's population and creating that personalized experience for every customer in the product?
Yeah. So Glean is actually like our product itself, like it's a personal assistant. And you can be a good assistant only if you really understand your users really, really well. So like in an enterprise setting, what it means is that you need to understand, like, what does this person do? Like, are they an engineer? Are they, a marketer? What teams do they work in? What locations, are they based out of? Who are their closest colleagues, cross-functional collaborators? What are the pieces of knowledge that they tend to engage the most with? And that's sort of like, so we learn all of those things internally, and that's sort of what allows us to sort of build this, deep people profiles, and then when they come and now ask questions, we can use all of that context to sort of help, answer those questions the right way for them.
Great. You right there. Okay.
Great answer as well. Kind of going off of that, what would you say is the minimum set of things the personal assistant needs to be able to do for someone to adopt it in your experience?
Well, yeah, so I think a bar for a search product is quite high, in my opinion. Like, it needs to be, and that was my lesson at Google as well. So the first thing that is the most important thing for any search engine is that it needs to be comprehensive. So if I'm looking for something, and like if I don't find that information in my search engine, then I'm going to lose confidence. I'm not going to come back to it. So from day one, like with that high bar, that if you're going to actually go and deploy this product in a company, you have to connect with all of that company information, be fully comprehensive, because you can't actually like make people think that I'm not going to actually find my answers here. So it's a high bar in my mind. So, and then once you connect with all the information, then of course, like you have to, I think you have some room, like, it's okay for sometimes for you to just point people to right information. Sometimes you can actually take that information and synthesize it and actually give them the precise answers to it. But there you have sort of more leeway in my mind. Like, you can sort of incrementally, change the product experience to where it gives you answers instead of links. But yeah, that's how we think about it.
Great. I think we have room for time. No? Okay. I've been told no question. But
yeah.
Thank you so much, Arvind. our mission is to back history-making companies, and I have no doubt in my mind that you're building Glean as a company that's going to make history and double the world's population. And so we're really proud to have you in our portfolio. It's amazing to work with you. And so thank you so much for joining us on stage today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.